this episode, we're going to make asymmetric cryptography feel approachable by focusing on the mental model that makes it useful: Keypairs and trust. Asymmetric cryptography is often presented as intimidating because people imagine it as advanced math reserved for specialists. But the practical idea is simple once you see what problem it solves. Symmetric cryptography relies on a shared secret key, which is fast and effective, but sharing that key safely with the right party is hard when you don't already have a secure channel. Asymmetric cryptography addresses that by using two related keys instead of one: a public key that can be shared and a private key that must be protected. That key pair design enables secure key exchange, digital signatures, and identity verification in ways that symmetric methods cannot easily provide on their own. Our goal is to understand how key pairs work at a high level, how trust is built around them, and the common confusions that cause people to deploy asymmetric cryptography in ways that feel secure but aren't. A good place to begin is to define the key pair concept in plain language. In asymmetric cryptography, each identity has a pair of keys that are mathematically related. One is meant to be public and distributed widely, and the other is meant to remain private and controlled by the owner. The relationship between the keys is special because something done with one key can be validated or reversed only with the other key, depending on the use case. This creates two major capabilities. You can encrypt something so that only the owner of the private key can decrypt it, and you can sign something with the private key so that anyone with the public key can verify it. Those two capabilities map nicely to the cryptography goals we discussed earlier, particularly confidentiality, authenticity, and non-repudiation. The private key is the crown jewel, because if an attacker steals it, they can impersonate the owner and decrypt protected data. The public key, on the other hand, is not secret, but it must be authentic, meaning it must truly belong to the claimed owner. That authenticity of public keys is where trust enters the story. To make the encryption side intuitive, imagine you want to send a secret message to a website or a person you have never communicated with before. If you use symmetric encryption, you would need to somehow share a secret key first, which is the classic chicken and egg problem. With asymmetric encryption, you can use the recipient's public key to encrypt the message, and only the recipient's private key can decrypt it. This allows you to send confidential data without pre-sharing a secret. In many real systems, this approach is used mainly to establish a secure session, and then symmetric encryption takes over for the bulk data because it is much faster. So asymmetric cryptography often acts like the secure introduction, allowing the parties to agree on shared secrets safely, after which symmetric cryptography carries the heavy load. The beginner lesson is that asymmetric methods are not a replacement for symmetric methods. They are a complement that solves the key exchange and identity problems. When you hear about secure web connections, you're usually hearing about a combination of both types. The signature side is often even more important for security because it provides a way to prove origin and integrity. When someone signs data with their private key, they are creating a cryptographic proof that the data came from someone who possesses that private key and that the data has not been altered since it was signed. Anyone can verify the signature using the public key, which means verification does not require sharing a secret. This is why digital signatures are so powerful for software updates, documents, and authentication mechanisms. If a software publisher signs an update, your system can verify that the update was created by the legitimate publisher and not modified by an attacker in transit. This also supports non-repudiation in many contexts, because a signature can serve as evidence that a particular key holder approved something. The crucial point is that the signature ties identity to integrity because it binds the originator's key to the exact content. If the content changes, verification fails, which makes tampering visible. Now we need to talk about trust, because asymmetric cryptography works only when you can trust that a public key truly belongs to the identity you think it belongs to. If an attacker can trick you into using their public key while claiming it belongs to a legitimate party, you can end up encrypting secrets to the attacker or trusting malicious signatures. This is the heart of many man-in-the-middle problems. The cryptography can be perfect, but the wrong key is used. Trust is typically built through systems that bind a public key to an identity in a verifiable way, often through certificates issued by trusted authorities or through direct out-of-band verification methods. The concept matters even if you never manage certificates yourself. When your browser connects securely to a website, your browser is not just using encryption, it is also verifying a chain of trust that says this public key belongs to this domain. If that chain is broken or misconfigured, you can have secure encryption to the wrong party, which is a subtle but dangerous failure. The beginner lesson is that cryptography does not eliminate trust problems. It formalizes them and requires careful key identity binding. A very common confusion is mixing up what it means to encrypt with a public key versus what it means to sign with a private key. Encryption is about confidentiality, meaning you are protecting the content so only the intended private key holder can read it. Signing is about authenticity and integrity, meaning you are proving who produced the content and that it hasn't been changed. People sometimes think signing makes content secret, but it doesn't. A signed message can be read by anyone. It is just verifiable. Conversely, an encrypted message may be confidential but not necessarily authenticated unless additional steps are taken, because encryption alone does not prove who sent it. This confusion leads to system designs where people believe they have proven identity when they have only achieved secrecy, or believe they have achieved secrecy when they have only proven identity. In practice, secure communication often needs both confidentiality and authenticity, which means combining encryption and signatures or using protocols that provide both properties together. The important beginner takeaway is to always ask what goal is being served: secrecy, integrity, identity, or later proof. Another frequent confusion is treating key possession as equivalent to human identity without considering how keys are protected and managed. If a private key is stored insecurely, copied widely, or left on devices that are easily compromised, then the key does not represent a stable identity. In that case, a signature proves only that someone had access to the key, which might include attackers. This is why private key protection is so central and why organizations use strong controls for key storage and access. It is also why key rotation and revocation matter, because when a key is suspected to be compromised, it must be treated as untrustworthy going forward. Beginners sometimes imagine that once you have a public key, trust is permanent, but trust can change if the private key is stolen or if the binding between key and identity becomes uncertain. A mature view treats keys as assets with life cycles, not as magical permanent tokens. That lifecycle thinking is what keeps asymmetric cryptography from becoming a brittle trust assumption. The performance trade-off is another area where confusion can cause failure. Asymmetric cryptography is slower than symmetric cryptography, and if you try to use it for large amounts of data directly, you can create performance problems that lead people to disable security controls or deploy them inconsistently. This is why real protocols often use asymmetric methods for handshake and key exchange, then switch to symmetric methods for data transfer. When designs ignore this, they can produce systems that are theoretically secure but operationally unsustainable. Another operational issue is that key sizes and algorithm choices must be appropriate to the threat model and the expected lifespan of the protected data. While we're not getting into specific numeric recommendations here, the beginners should understand the principle. Cryptography choices have to match the context, including how long confidentiality must hold and how valuable the data is. If people treat asymmetric cryptography as a one-size-fits-all solution, they may deploy it incorrectly or abandon it under operational pressure. The best cryptography is the cryptography that can be used consistently. Confusion also shows up in certificate trust because people sometimes treat certificates as mere files rather than as trust statements with rules. A certificate is essentially a claim that a certain public key belongs to a certain identity, and that claim is backed by some authority or validation method. If the authority is untrustworthy, or if the certificate is misissued, the trust chain can be compromised. If systems do not check certificate validity properly, such as ignoring expiration or failing to validate the chain, they may accept the wrong keys. Another common failure is blindly trusting self-signed certificates without verification, which can create a man-in-the-middle opportunity if an attacker can insert their own certificate. These details can sound specialized, but the underlying lesson is simple. The key is only useful when you are sure it is the right key. Trust systems exist to provide that assurance, but they must be used correctly. When people bypass validation for convenience, they often weaken the very protection they thought they were gaining. As we conclude, remember that asymmetric cryptography is best understood as a key-pair system that solves key exchange and identity verification problems that symmetric cryptography struggles with on its own. The public key can be shared widely, while the private key must be protected, and that separation enables confidential exchange without pre-shared secrets and enables digital signatures that prove origin and integrity. Trust is the critical companion concept, because you must know that a public key truly belongs to the claimed identity, or you risk secure communication with the wrong party. Many failures come from confusion, such as mixing up encryption and signing goals, assuming key possession always equals identity, or bypassing certificate validation for convenience. Asymmetric methods are also slower, so real systems use them primarily for handshakes and then rely on symmetric encryption for bulk data. If you keep the key pair and trust model clear, you'll be able to understand how secure web browsing, signed software updates, and many authentication systems work, and you'll be better equipped to spot the design mistakes that turn strong cryptography into weak security.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.